Our good friend Mike McBride has stopped by while we're here at the Democratic National Convention, and I don't know how to talk with you when I'm looking you in the eye. We're usually on the phone with each other.
Rev.
Listen, thanks for coming by.
Thank you, man, for coming to our session. We just finished up a session on urban gun violence, and thank you for being here.
Talk about what you just talked about.
Well, we talked about the importance of the Democratic Party candidates up and down the ballot, expanding the conversation around gun violence prevention to be inclusive of programs and intervention strategies. We know that when these tragic killings happen at any level, usually the default position of most political conversations happen with only background checks. We need to limit the accessibility of guns. But part of what we want to also talk about is the demand side. How do we actually lower people's demand or need to feel like they have to use a gun? And our ceasefire strategies are some of the strategies that are out there, and we talked about that here for the last couple of hours.
Pastor Mike, I think you are more equipped than almost anybody to answer a question I have. I keep running into people when we talk about Black Lives Matter who say, well, all lives matter. I have an answer for that, but I'd much rather hear your answer to it.
Well, I think the most disingenuous part of the response to Black Lives Matter, saying all lives matter, is that it is an attempt to negate the truth, or at least minimize the need to say that Black Lives Matter. I heard Bishop T.D. say it best that, he probably, if it was him, would say Black Lives Matter too. So maybe I'll just invite people to add the TOO onto every time someone says Black Lives Matter, if that's what you need to do in order to hear the truth of what is being said. The affirmation of Black lives is not the negation of anyone else's life, but there is a unique challenge we're facing right now with the vulnerability of Black lives, brown lives, poor lives in this country that requires a public affirmation. Let us not be ahistorical and forget that it has not been one day in the history of this country that Black lives have not been subjected to arbitrary violence at the hands of the state or vigilantes. So we have to begin to imagine what then is the collective responsibility of our country to ensure that the lives of Black folk, the bodies of Black people, are equally protected under the law, and that we have the ability to have due process even when we show our humanity by making mistakes or errors of judgment.
Tell me the most exciting thing you're doing right now, working on the streets and with the people that you're with so much.
Well, I love connecting with the young people from the movement and from the neighborhoods who are really struggling every day to live. I think that people don't appreciate that much of the effort that's happening in the movement is a cry and a commitment to life. So I am very excited to be able to work with, as I say, Pookie and Ray Ray in the community and experience these extreme reductions in gun violence, related homicides. I'm extremely blessed to be able to stand arm in arm with our sisters and brothers and LGBTQ millennials who are in the streets calling for the end of extrajudicial killings at the hands of law enforcement. I'm blessed to be able to keep pastoring the church and participate in all these different levels of hopefully making them creating a beloved community. So I'm a blessed man. It's hard work, but we don't have any other choice. You know that, Rev. We got to do what we're called to do.
I'm curious about one other thing. The people that you work with on the street, are they seeing hope anywhere?
Well, I think that hope is definitely something that feels elusive in this moment. Yesterday, we saw the fourth officer in the Freddie Gray case be acquitted.
Yes.
So I do think people must appreciate the psychological trauma that many of us are experiencing when we're seeing folks shot and killed on camera over and over again with no convictions, no accountability. And we're seeing the response of the state. Many of the elected officials are Democrats who would then unleash weapons of war, tanks, military equipment on nonviolent, peaceful protesters attempting to squelch their dissent. I think there's a hopelessness is starting to set in many places. This is why we need the faith community, I think, en masse, to only pray for this movement and this moment, but to get out into the streets, get out into the polls, get out into the neighborhoods, and meet people who are different than you, listen to their stories, imagine that we can, overcome our difference and be agents of hope. One of the good reverends says that if you show up with hope, people will give you their hopelessness. So maybe we show up with hope during this season.
Well, listen, I know that it doesn't make one bit of difference what I say about this because you're going to do what you're doing already. But just know that you're in our thoughts and prayers and that we appreciate more than we can say what you do.
Well, Rev, your voice does matter, and I appreciate it. I'll store it up for a rainy day.
Good.
And I'll press play whenever I need it. Thank you.
All right,
Great
man.
to see you.
Thank you.
All right.